This
and
conference will
development
now be recorded.
regulations. Pend Oreille County's comprehensive plan was started when the Pend Oreille County Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution on December 28, 1990, indicating its decision to comply with the requirements of the Washington State Growth Management Act. The resulting Pend Oreille County Comprehensive Act was approved in October 17, 2005, almost 15 years ago to the date, and was to be the clear vision of the kind of community we wish to live in now and in the future. What is the Washington Growth Management Act and the Pend Oreille County Comprehensive Plan? They are the big picture of land
what
use
we're hearing
in
is
Pend Oreille
other
County
people
and in the
talking in
state.
the background.
Those
What we're doing
documents are what I
is
call the land use Bibles
Please mute your phone.
for the state and
Your
county.
computer.
Land use and land use issues. I will add water resources and allocation need to be our #1 priority in Pend Oreille County. Nothing is so essential and necessary to the health and well-being of the people of Pend Oreille County, our neighbors, our environment, and how we use a gift of our land and our water. They should not be squandered, wasted, polluted, or destroyed. The 5 guiding principles of that plan were: #1, maintain natural resource assets and preserve the rural character of the area. #2, promote compatible and responsible land use. #3, provide adequate facilities and ensure that new developments should be a suitable scale and compatible with the rural character of our community. #4, plan a partnership consisting of landowners, local, tribe, state, and federal agencies working together to achieve common goals. And finally, 5,
Someone cut them off.
the Pend Oreille County Board of Commissioners who support and encourage partnerships that contribute to the coordination and conservation of natural resources. Now, how in the world does a proposed silicon metal smelter or any heavy urban industrial facility fit into those 5 guiding principles? It doesn't. Just because you don't like the law, the land use Bible, it doesn't mean you can circumvent it to suit your own agenda. It is concerning and downright depressing when you hear one of our county commissioners say, "I don't care about pollution. I'll be gone in 20 years when the real problems start, and we need the jobs between now and then." Another says, "I have chosen to live in Pend Oreille County for over 60 years and have endured all sorts of pollution, both natural and man-made, not unlike everyone else in the world. Pollution is with us no matter where we reside, and the best we can do is to minimize it."
You're under 1 minute at this point.
1 minute? Okay, just about done. With those type of attitudes coming from those who set and make county policies, it is definitely time for them to step down and replace those seats with people who do care about controlling pollution and care about the potential destruction of our health and environment. We need visioning county commissioners who care about what happens today as well as the future. Concerned county commissioners who will do everything possible to protect our water, our air quality, our soils, health of the people, and our environment, plus build resiliency into our forest lands and communities, thereby preventing catastrophic, destructive, and deadly forest fires. Positive county commissioners who will work diligently with the citizens and agencies to provide and support light industrial development, responsible green industrial jobs, and there are wood product industries that can be created right here in Pend Oreille County using our own natural resources. Creative county commissioners who will support local entrepreneurship, farmers market, small businesses, tourism, timber and agricultural landowners, the arts and humanities, and other business endeavors. And finally, hopeful county commissioners who are not part of the good old boys system and who will work hard to bring open dialogue and transparency, creativity, enjoyment, and prosperity to Ponderay County and its people. Dedicated county commissioners who will adhere to and support that big picture, the vision set forth in the Ponderay County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kardos. Mr. Gentle, would you like to have an opening statement, please?
I'm John Gentle. I have a very simple message for you tonight. When I started this campaign, we had no COVID. When I started this campaign, Ponderay Newsprint was still in operation. And so my message is one of good news. I think you've had enough bad news. I have to admit, for a little while there, things got pretty gray, pretty cloudy. It was hard to see our way out of this. God, how are we going to get out of this hole? How do we rebuild from here? And then something happened on the campaign trail. See, day by day, person by person, I got to meet you. And I got to hear how you climbed out, how you got through your adversities, how you survived your pains. And I saw a thread just beneath the surface. It's not always obvious, but it is a thread that connects all of us. And that thread was resilience. That's the nicest way I can put it. Some of you are downright stubborn. And I'm counting on it. You see, I promised you a message of good news, and the message is this. You have an opportunity. Your ballots were mailed out today to decide how your next 4 years are going to go. When you get your ballots, when you check that box, what are you saying? If not, this is the person I trust to make my tomorrow better than my today. You are going to have an opportunity to decide largely what the next 4 years looks like. You're going to have very clear options here tonight. We should be able to distill those options for you within a reasonable amount. Should you decide that John Gentle is worth your vote, my commitment to you is we will prosper again as a county. On the campaign trail, I learned what you already know, and that is Ponderay County has too much to offer the world for us to exist at the poverty line any longer. Okay? My goal is simple. My message is simple. I want to get you paid. I want to bring you benefits. I want your children and your grandchildren to be able to work here. They should have options. And that's the highest priority. We'll talk about how that happens. We'll go over it in great detail, I'm sure. Ask yourself, where do you want to be in 4 years? Where do you see yourself in 4 years? Are we still going to be talking about the same things we're talking about tonight? I certainly hope that's not the case. Should you trust me with your vote, my commitment to you is I will work on your behalf. Sonia, thank you. North County, Selkirk's son, Jim and Sheldon, thank you. And then Phyllis as well. This is an amazing opportunity. And then for anyone who showed up on a Friday night at the end of summer, you guys care about the county, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, sir. A reminder, before we begin the actual part of the debate, candidates will have 7 minutes per question. You can use the entire 7 minutes. You cannot use the entire 7 minutes. That is up to you. You will be reminded when you are down to 1 minute. When you reach the 0 mark, I'm going to be cutting you off. Is that understood? We will begin with Mr. Gentle on question number 1. What is your stance on the proposed smelter? And if approved, how many full-time employees will it support upon its completion?
Well, straight after it, huh, Jim? My stance on the smelter. I'm for it. I'm for it. I'm for a $350 million investment in the county. I'm for 150 high-paying jobs. I'm for people getting higher training and higher qualifications, bigger paychecks. I'm for soaking up that power base. Our PUD is currently selling power at a loss because they lost 75% of their customers essentially overnight, and the efficiency of delivering that 75% power to one customer. I feel like it's a good fit for this county. I feel like this county was built on processing natural resources. We've been sustained on processing natural resources. Whether we choose to move away and pick a different direction in the future, absolutely possibility. That is something the county will decide. That is something you will decide. To do it overnight, I think these kinds of things should have been planned for the last 20 years. I think probably we would both agree largely they have not been. And here we are. We're looking for something a little closer to a turnkey solution, but it solves a number of other problems. It solves the problem of our lost exporters. Okay? I probably don't have to explain to you how critical it is that we are exporting. There was a time when people all over the world were writing checks for our ore and our lumber and our newsprint and sending it into Ponderay County. We cannot get by without exporters. Largely, we are passing our own dollars back and forth, minus the governor's cuts. Okay, that's not sustainable. We do have to have exporters. I'd like to find a user for this power. As to the number of jobs, PacWest says 150. Take them at their word or don't, as you see fit. Mississippi Silicon, if you haven't read about them in Burnsville, Mississippi, I recommend do that tonight. Do that this weekend. Go take a look at them. They were commissioned in 2015. They're running at the high water mark, maybe 200 jobs. At the low water mark, 100. That seems to fit kind of with what PacWest is saying. 100 plus good paying jobs that do require training. Am I worried about the people here being trained? No, I've met you. I'm not worried about it. We have doctors and lawyers. There aren't things here that require more training than that. I do have faith in your ability, and I do not underestimate you. What is often overlooked here is, aside from those jobs, John, I don't want to work at a smelter. It's 140 degrees, and that's hard work, and it can be dangerous. So you get these 150 jobs, and then you have all of the spin-off jobs, and somebody is going to build a freight company and supply PacWest, and someone is going to sell PacWest wood chips, and someone is going to do their machining, and someone is going to mow their lawn, and the job after job after job, and there will be a lot of people making a lot of money with an opportunity like this. And then, maybe that's not for you either. Guess what? There's still something for you. All of the vacancies that just came available for the people that moved into these jobs and these jobs. You understand, when you see 50, 60-year-old people working in McDonald's, that's kind of against the natural order of things. We're backed up. This is their second or third job to make ends meet, and now our high school graduates don't have places to start. So this essentially removes the bottom rung of the ladder. Everybody moves up, okay? The benefits are amazing. The pay, from what I understand, they were actually in contention with the union. They understand they have to pay high in Ponderay County because it's critical that they keep trained people. They can't pay low and have people walking. It's counterproductive. So, yes, I'm for it, unless the Department of Ecology says it cannot be built here safely. If the Department of Ecology says it can't be done safely, I will join you in fighting against the smelter. I'm not interested in poisoning your air. I'm not interested in poisoning your water. I live here. I love it here. My family's here. Okay? I don't know how to say it more clearly. We do have people whose job it is to protect us from things like that. Those people are not in this room today. We cannot afford to jump to conclusions, to draw lines in the sand here, okay? We have to be committed to getting all of the information, including an environmental impact statement in hand. Anyone who is making a decision before we have all of the science is being irresponsible, okay, is acting recklessly. We have to be committed to following the process. And that has been my message from the start. It's my message tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos,
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
would you like me to restate the question, ma'am?
You know, I've got the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, you've certainly seen right up front the difference between Mr. Gentle and myself. I am absolutely opposed to that silicon smelter, and I have been saying that for 3.5 years. And I am opposed to the siting of that proposed smelter for all the reasons I have been talking about for the past 3.5 years. It's huge, huge carbon footprint. It's regulated and unregulated greenhouse gas emissions and the other toxic and volatile pollutants that will be spewing out of those two stacks. Increased burden on our infrastructure. We got one street light here in Newport. We will have to be building roads. They want a railroad system. They want a new highway. You want to pay for that? Because those industries want us, the taxpayers, to pay for their industry. We've already paid to the tune of $350,000 for engineering studies. Increased financial burden on the taxpayers. Urban sprawl in a rural area, destroying and eliminating productive forest land, agricultural land, wetlands, wildlife habitats, over 100 or more acres of an impervious covering on the landscape up on the south bench, over the top of our aquifers, within the matter of a few hundred yards of our new well system downhill. Doesn't stormwater flow downhill? That's where our water system exists right now. Increase in commercial, road, and rail traffic, employees' vehicles, noise, vibration, light pollution, and the introduction of coal into a coal-free environment. And that list goes on. We are rural. We're not urban. Now, the figures on employees would come from High Test and PacWest, and I think Mr. Gentle is pretty close to those figures. I saw approximately 144, so I think we're close there. But I want you to keep in mind about these industries. They have their own crews. They have their own unions. I was told that more than 70% of tech mine workers up north came from Montana. Does 144 for thereabout full-time jobs mean 144 people from Ponderay County will be employed at that proposed smelter? No, it does not mean that whatsoever. They have their own people they will bring in. Does that mean no people would be employed here? Well, I'm sure there will be. They'll be working at those $17 an hour jobs. I want to mention a couple of things Mr. Gentle had said. I don't support us putting all our eggs in one basket. And if we bring in that smelter, we become a company store town. There'd be no diversification of jobs. There would be one job, there'd be one industry, because we couldn't afford anymore. Mr. Gentle talked about the using natural resources. Coal, carbon, 99% silica. Specialized wood chips do not exist here in Ponderay County. They have to be brought in. Coal from Kentucky or Colombia, South America. Carbon from one of the islands. Silica from Canada, crystalline silica, 99% pure. Specialized wood chips from somewhere else. I'm not sure where. And when we talk about the Department of Ecology and trusting them, let's take a look at the Superfund site in Kellogg, Idaho right now. Let's take a look at the Spokane River and the fact that they just lowered the standards for letting arsenic into that river. Let's look at the Spokane Indian tribe and what has happened there with their water system and the arsenic that's in it. So to trust the Department of Ecology, who is lowering the standards for pollution, I think not. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move on to question 2, and this will be for Mrs. Kardos again. What do you know about the Washington Growth Management Act and the Ponderay County Comprehensive Plan?
I love this question, and I'll tell you why. 3.5 years ago, I knew very little about it. I knew that the comprehensive plan existed. I knew that it was to protect our forest lands, our ag lands, our open spaces from urban sprawl. Other than that, I really didn't know a whole lot about it. So when this whole thing about the smelter started unfolding, I went right down to the community development office and I said, can I have a copy of the Ponderay County comp plan? And they, well, we don't have any copies. And I said, could you print me a copy? Oh yeah, I'll do that right now. You can't go in there and do that now, I can guarantee you. So I was just lucky to have that done. So I've always had a hard copy. And so what I want to show you is over the years, I have dog-eared this thing. I have read it inside and out. And to answer that question very, very briefly, yes, I do know about the comprehensive plan. But what I also want to say is that is the vision. The comp plan is the vision for Ponderay County. The law happens to be the Ponderay County Development Regulations, which are just probably more important. Because this is the enforceable part of the comprehensive plan right here. And so it's just as important to have that there. So yes, I know about as much about the Growth Management Act, the Washington State Growth Management Act, and the Ponderay County Comprehensive Plan as probably any layperson would know. The other thing I also have carried around with me and researched is what's called the Critical Aquifer Recharge Areas, the guidance document. Those are the 3 documents I really depend on for the law. That's a land use law. Right now, the comprehensive plan is somewhat in limbo because it's supposed to be updated every 5 years, I believe, 5 or 7 years. And it's woefully behind schedule. And it's putting a heavy burden on some people that it hasn't been completed. I think COVID might have had something to do with it. My understanding just recently at the recent county commissioners meeting is that is going to start getting some movement because the deadline has been passed and we're not eligible, frankly, for grants and funding unless we get this thing updated and get it updated pretty soon. There's some controversial issues in it that a number of us are not too happy with. I've also been very much a part of trying to get some language in there to pull it into the 21st century, language that would include global warming and climate change. And we were kind of turned down on that, trying to get that language into it. It's just recently, over in Olympia, the Washington Growth Management Act is now including global warming and climate change language into the Washington Growth Management Act. So we need to pull ourselves in the 21st century and do the same thing. So to answer that question, I'm very comfortable with my knowledge right now of the plan and the Growth Management Act. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gentle, same question to you, sir.
The Growth Management Act, a series of statutes adopted in 1990. It primarily relies on the comprehensive plans to manage growth in rapidly growing cities and counties. And so I'm just going to let that marinate for a second. To manage growth in rapidly growing cities and counties. I know some of you will appreciate the irony that while we lose job after job after job, after business after business after business, that while some of the best paychecks the county has ever known are hemorrhaging right now, some of the best checks we've seen in the last 30 years, we're going to spend this amount of time talking about managing our growth. Listen, when you hear people talk about the red tape brought to us by Olympia that's choking out our county and killing our businesses, this is largely what they're referring to. This is certainly a big part of it. If you can imagine someone sitting in Olympia writing law telling you, a person who owns 20 acres, a person who faithfully pays taxes on 20 acres, what you can and what you cannot do with your land. Understand this, they may have never set foot in your county. Understand that they flush their toilet and it works every time. No one they know, and no one within 10 miles of them has ever owned a septic system. They don't know anything about your county. They don't know anything about your land, but they've written the rules for it, and we get to comply with those rules. So we have an obligation to work within this framework, it's true. As much as I might dislike it, we're going to work within the framework. To add red tape to that, to add excessive regulations on our part, I don't care for that plan at all. If you want to see an example of the difference between a county that gets to decide their own fate, between what local leadership looks like, us solving our own problems, versus government solving our problems for us, I've got a 3-step program for you. Step 1, stand up. Step 2, put on your sneakers. Step 3, walk a half a mile that direction to Old Town, where they're growing like crazy and they're creating new checks. Seems like every day. The difference in Old Town just in the last 365 days is tremendous. And sometimes it feels like we're stuck in neutral here. And I think this is a large part of it. I think probably both of the candidates agree there are some changes that are long overdue. What those changes are, if you go, you can see the edits. You can see they do have it posted, the current status of the plan as it is. It's overdue, and it's time to get this tied up. If it's not done by the time one of us takes office, you better have the right person in place to open up this county for business. Listen, for my part, I understand we've got to have the rules. I understand we have to be good stewards, but to say, well, maybe Ronald Reagan said it best, any question that the answer to is more government involvement was probably a really stupid question to begin with.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to question number 3. And we'll begin with Mr. Gentle. What makes you qualified for this position as a commissioner?
So my qualifications for commissioner, I think it's really kind of a 2-part question. The first part of the question, my black and white qualifications, what people will look for. Are you fit to be commissioner? I was in the engineering department in the United States Navy, and a common thread throughout the military, you'll see the mission is bigger than the person. And so in this regard, it's a lot like a county in that there are a lot of moving parts. But if we aren't facing the same direction, then we aren't getting a lot done. And then largely we're going to be failing our missions. In the military, of course, there's going to be a great focus on discipline and leadership. And I think the veterans here will tell you that. So certainly those are things that were trained into me, experiences that I've learned over the years that are going to suit me well. My time in the service industry, Phyllis family is very familiar with the service industry. She knows as well as anyone, you are going to live or die in the service industry based almost entirely on your reputation and your ability to solve problems. If you are not solving the problem you are called for, you are not called again. You do that enough times, you're out of business. So I was in the service industry for 20 years. I learned a lot there. Communication is critical, providing value, delighting your customers. But you're the whole ball of wax, right? You are sales, you are marketing, you're scheduling, you're doing the whole thing. And so it is a high degree of accountability. One of the reasons I did well was I very much enjoyed it. I was good at it because I enjoyed working outdoors. It was never the same 2 days in a row. Someone called with a 100-year-old system, someone called with a 1-minute-old problem. Different every day. I thrive in that kind of challenging environment. Another qualification I have is I've been a small business owner in the state of Washington. The small business owners will tell you they wear all the hats. Okay? Marketing, sales, human resources, hiring, firing, you're the boss, you're the sweat, you're the labor. You're responsible for all of it. It's not something you can pretend, it's not something you can read about in a book. You know or you don't know in the state of Washington, especially where L&I will crush you, where the regulations are so high, where the permitting fees and the licenses go on forever, and there isn't always a clear path from A to B. Most recently, when my niece said, John, you've spent too much time on the ground, it's time to find a standing up job, I moved to the assessor's office here in Ponderay, the certified real property appraiser. My time in the assessor's office, pushing 1.5 years at this point, has given me a clear understanding of one of our critical revenue sources for the county. Okay, I understand how the property taxes are generated, but I also understand the limitations. I'm understanding, getting the feedback from the county. How do we get a lower levy rate? What things can we do? What steps can we take? This is critical because the budget, the county budget, is one of the most important, it's probably the most important job of the county commissioner. So those are my qualifications.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos, same
Yes.
question to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not as good as John with extemporaneous speaking, so I always have to prepare and kind of write it out. So I guess that's another difference that John and Mr. Gentle and I have. But, so what makes me qualified for this position? There are only a few requirements or qualifications on who may run for Washington County Commissioner. Generally, a candidate must have resided in the county for at least 12 months. I've lived here over 59 years and be at least 21 years of age. Well, I am definitely over 21 years of age. You must be a registered voter and entitled to vote in the county. I am a registered voter and entitled to vote. I believe there are restrictions on running if you've been convicted of a felon or a serious crime or something, and I've never even had a traffic ticket, knock on wood. No particular job experience or education is required or to be known as the best preparation for success as a county commissioner. However, familiarity with some aspects of budgeting, personnel management, communications, problem solving, as Mr. Gentle mentioned, visioning, goal setting, plus knowledge of the law can and will be useful. My experience in budgeting comes from not only my own home finances of 61 years without the use of a credit card and debt, but my work as a school administrator and director of curriculum and instruction. Budgeting the dollars appropriately was the bottom line in providing a quality education for the students. This was not done in isolation, but a joint endeavor with the district business manager, the superintendent, and the district board. Personnel management fell under my department, along with the superintendent, and included providing in-service, professional development, activities for all teachers, paraeducators, administrators, developing an evaluation instrument and performing evaluations, conflict resolution strategies. I have an endorsement in conflict resolution. My work was working directly with teachers, understanding the curriculum, best teaching strategies, and multiple forms of assessment. Communication is a critical piece of any job, whether that is verbal, written, or even body language, has always been my strong suit. Good communication is a learned behavior that puts listening to others as a priority over excessive talking. Good communication also requires a good working knowledge and use of available technology. Setting a vision with goals in my work as an educator or as a potential county commissioner cannot be understated. The vision, once again, I'm talking the vision. A vision creates the energy and will to make, and the will to make changes happen. It inspires individuals and organizations to commit, to persist, and to give their best. A vision is a practical guide for creating the plans, setting goals and objectives, making decisions, and coordinating and evaluating the work of any project, large or small. As far as knowledge of the law, I am more than familiar with the Open Meeting Act, confidentiality, record laws, and etc. Those were essential in running a school district. I took a very intense course in educational law at Gonzaga University, and that covered all aspects of law, not just education, but business, government, and the rest. It is also important to note that the 2 new county commissioners will be provided with a 3-day training, December 8 through the 10th, through the Washington State Association of Counties, that will provide us with the tools and resources to transition into public service confidently. So there will be a learning curve, regardless of what kind of skills I have now and skills I've used in the past. There will be a learning curve. And I appreciate the opportunity, if I get the opportunity, to attend this training. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move on to question number 4 for Mrs. Kardos. What is your education, high school and college?
Okay. I grew up in northern Idaho, in a small community not an hour and a half from here, surrounded by the Cabinet Range Mountains, Clark Fork, Idaho, one of the most beautiful places on the earth practically. The environment in Clark Fork is very similar to Medellin Falls, so I enjoy going up to Medellin because it reminds me a lot of Clark Fork, with the river and the mountains so close. So I started out in kindergarten and finished my high school education in Clark Fork, Idaho. I didn't start college until I was 37 years old, and then started it by attending North Idaho Junior College at the time in Coeur d'Alene, where my husband was teaching forestry. I transferred to Spokane Community College and earned an AA degree. My next step was to transfer my credits to Eastern Washington University, where I completed a BA in education. My field of study was 6th through 12th grade social sciences with a minor in political science. I actually started out my education in political science because I wanted to be an environmental lawyer, which is kind of ironic considering my advocacy work right now. I started on a master's program in 20th century history, immediately upon getting my BA degree, but after 2 quarters went to work without completing it. I took additional courses at Eastern Washington University during one summer and added an English minor to my degree. Once I was working for the Iditarod Area School District, I was granted a 1-year sabbatical. And in that time, I earned a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, a job which I was doing actually. Plus, I continued to work for the district. Throughout my entire working career, I took coursework at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, the University of Alaska Anchorage, the University of Alaska Juneau, and Gonzaga University. I'm kind of a college bum because I love learning and I love the whole campus idea and the whole ability to be able to learn. So that is my education, and also education of hard knocks. I've had that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kardos, same question to you, sir.
Mr. Gentle.
Yes,
Mr. Gentle, I'm sorry.
We're not married yet.
I
We
apologize.
might fight like it, but we're not married yet.
I apologize.
You're all right. So my family moved here in 1991. We moved here from Scotland. So I was just here for my senior year. I graduated from Newport High School. I am a Newport Grizzly. A lot of my friends chose to pursue higher education. I went a different path. I chose to put on a uniform and defend the rights that you enjoy today, including your right to vote, including your right to debate. My military A school was for machinist mate in Orlando, Florida. When I transferred aboard my first vessel, a guided missile cruiser, the USS Vincennes, they retrained me as a gas turbine mechanic. It happened to be what they needed, and I was excited to do it. Higher certifications in the service would be engine room monitor. Understand we have 3 engine rooms on a cruiser. We're responsible for providing propulsion and power generation, but every support service runs through the engine room as well. So all those guys you see with the shiny white uniforms, that was not me. I was wearing coveralls in the bowels of the boat. So an engine room monitor is going to monitor thousands of gauges. If you've done it long enough and you start to learn all of the answers and you work in a high proficiency, you have an opportunity to certify for engine room operator. I did. Since then, I was in landscaping. I've taken various courses over the years working towards a certified landscape technician. And then, of course, my most recent continuing education course would be as a real property appraiser, where I certified just, I guess it would be about 16 months ago, to work for the assessor's office.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to question number 5. This one will be for Mr. Gentle. What jobs have you had in your adult life?
In my adult life.
Yes, sir.
Well, I can't imagine that you want to hear about when I made nachos at Big Wheel or built docks on Priest Lake, so I'll try to stick to the ones that I feel are relevant here. Of course, working in the engineering department, in the service, the education you're going to get alongside 300 shipmates there. Vets are a different breed. You really don't ever get an opportunity to lose sight of the mission, to lose sight of the big picture, because you get yourself sideways in a big hurry if you do. So I think the leadership here and the discipline here is the big takeaway from my time in service, but also I believe sometimes you can get yourself in trouble if you have been in a place forever. And I'm glad to hear Phyllis has traveled. When you meet people this way, have really had an opportunity to see how things are done in Europe, in third world countries across the world, and understand how privileged we are here in America, and understand how much these rights mean to us. After the military, I was a service technician for 20 years. That was 2 companies, and that was primarily in Spokane, where I lived in Ponderay County, but commuted like so many of you do. I believe close to half of our workforce. This was for Dewdrop, and this was for Greenleaf Landscaping. We had really the largest accounts in Spokane. Ones you have heard of, it's Holy Family Hospital and Valley Hospital. It's the Ridget Hangman, every Greenstone Lodge, 14-acre facilities that I'm irrigating personally, the crews that I ran there. These are our tools. These are people that I've worked with over the years. These are skill sets that I've built that I think will lend themselves well to problem solving at the county level. Like I said, I was a small business owner operator as well. That was the owner of Greenleaf was looking to split off departments to dissolve the company. I bought the irrigation department. It wasn't huge. It was a 6-figure business in the state of Washington. But boy, that's a trial by fire to be a small business owner in the state of Washington, to understand where some of you are coming from, the people who have been successful at small business, and the people who have tried and failed, and the people who never even cleared the gating protocol, who the answer was no, who the funding was no. To have a clearer understanding of that, I think, is going to serve me well, especially in communications with other small business owners, with prospective people moving into the county. And then, of course, my time at the assessor's office, that's my recent job where I still work. This I consider a win-win. Either I get to work for you as your commissioner, or I get to work where I'm at now which is a job where I will eventually get to see every single parcel in this county, all the way to the border of Canada. I love the office. I love the people there. The county is amazing. We're really in very good shape as far as our elected officials are top notch. Our administrators, we've got a very strong staff there. Whichever candidate is in office, boy, there's not going to be any shortage of expertise to lean on there. That gives me a good deal of comfort. Phyllis is right. There will be a period where one of us is drinking from the fire hose here. There's going to be a learning curve, no question. I'm comfortable with my work history, that my experience is broad enough that it's going to serve me well as a potential commissioner for you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos, same question to you.
Thank you. And John, I'd like to thank you for your service to our nation. Very sincerely, thank you. I'd like to talk about my first paying jobs, but it'll be quick and then I'll get to my adult life. It's just kind of nostalgic. So the first paying jobs that I had were in my childhood and included delivering the Spokesman Review, babysitting and washing dishes and peeling potatoes in the Clark Fork Cafe for 15 cents an hour, and working my way up to waitressing for 25 cents an hour, plus tips. And actually, that's where I met my husband, was in the Clark Fork Cafe. But from the time I was 17 until I was 41, my job was probably one of the most important jobs any person can have. And that was raising my family, at the time, my 5 kids, and keeping house, cooking meals, milking a cow, collecting eggs, taking part in my church community, taking kids back and forth between sporting events here at the schools, 4-H, track and field, wrestling, boxing even once upon a time, junior miss events, and much, much more, plus keeping my husband happy and fed. That's why we've been married 61 years. While attending college, I was actually paid as a teaching assistant, which would have been my very first paid job as an adult, where I actually got a check in my hand. I was a substitute teacher after graduating, after I earned my BA degree. I was a substitute teacher in the Spokane School District for 1 year. Not one of the funnest jobs in the world, but it was a paying job. I was hired by the Iditarod Area School District in Alaska to fill in for a sub-teacher going out on maternity leave. This sub-position turned into a full-time teaching position during the 1985-86 school years. I stayed with the district for 20 years in varying positions: a classroom teacher, a principal teacher, a full-time principal, and a curriculum specialist until I retired. I also was an adjunct instructor for the University of Alaska Fairbanks for 2 years. I taught a variety of educational classes to paraeducators throughout the state of Alaska via auto conferencing. Now we have Zoom, which would have been really nice, but then it just had to hear. And I continued to do that even after I retired and actually moved back to our farm full time. And so that was it.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move on to question number 6. This is for Mrs. Kardos to begin. How many times have you attended the commissioners' meeting within the last 2 years?
Can I tie those two together? There's two very close there, number 6 and 7.
Yes, ma'am, you may.
It's just going to take me a few minutes. And it was how many times have you attended planning commission meetings in Q6? So that's, and in order to answer those questions with great accuracy, I would have to look into the meeting minutes to determine the number of times I have attended each meeting, planning commission meeting or the county commissioners meeting. It's been a lot. In the last 3.5 years, it almost became my second home on the nights of those meetings. And the minutes of those meetings would certainly bear me out on that. Not just myself, but other people who were very interested in what was happening in the comprehensive plan and interested in what's going on at the county commissioners meetings. So to say 30, 40 times, it might even be an understatement. So I can say with complete honesty, it's been a lot of times for both. And like I say, the official minutes would prove me out on that. Presently, I attend the county commissioners meetings via Zoom. I zoom in on the portions of the meetings that have the most interest to me and that are concerned with the budget, land use issues, community development updates, and the like. Lately, I have been tuning into the budget hearings, the individual budget department hearings. And this past Tuesday, I listened in on the South Bench Land Exchange conversation that was going on. To my knowledge, there have not been any planning commission meetings since COVID, not even Zoom meetings. And I think that dates back to probably February and March. So there have been absolutely no meetings. I talked to a county commissioner, a planning commission member just the other day, and he has heard nothing now for months and months. I think it is important to point out that I not only have attended these meetings and have been visibly present, but I have spoken out. I've left written documents on issues that are of major concern to many people in the area. The Smelter, land use issues, rezoning is a huge one. So I'm there, plus I leave documentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gentle, same questions to you, sir.
How many commissioners meetings have I been to? How many planning commission meetings have I been to? So the answer is half a dozen commissioners meetings, maybe 5 or 6 planning commission meetings. I certainly get the impression from the line of questioning that people think knowing the county, understanding our problems and understanding our solutions is best served, best learned in meetings. I haven't found that to be the case. I found to be the case that it's best learned in the county, that the people are the job and the meetings are a necessary part of it, but that being out with the people and in the community is how you learn the problems and the potential solutions. In point of fact, I would like to submit that this is the entire reason you're watching tonight. It's the entire reason you vote for your commissioner. When you vote for a commissioner, you are saying, I can't or choose not to attend all of those meetings. I would like someone to go in my stead. I want someone there who's going to represent me and fight for the things that I hold dear and fight for my family and my values. That's the purpose of the vote to begin with. As it turns out, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning doesn't work for a lot of the people in this county. I think a lot of people are out earning a paycheck during that period of time. Being in the county is how I've learned about you. It's how I've learned about the county. In that regard, I have in excess of 10,000 hours of volunteerism and community service in this county. And when I tell you I have a full-time job and have forever now, you understand those are my weekends and those are my evenings that I'm giving to the county because I see the problems here and I'd like an opportunity to fix them. This is Newport High School Athletics. This is the Ponderay Players Association. This is Youth Emergency Services. This is opening my home to homeless youth. This is the Friends and Allies of Newport Silicon Smelter. This is anywhere I perceive I can jump in and make a difference. That's where I'm spending my hours. I'm absolutely willing to concede that Candace Kardos beats me by a landslide in meeting attendance. I think at this point it's safe to say she has spent hundreds of hours in the commissioner's meeting room and probably the same in the planning commission room. I think it's safe to say the people in the county have a pretty fair understanding of her strengths and her weaknesses at this point. And that's why I believe it is significant that all 3 of the current county commissioners have chosen to endorse me. I think that should tell you something. I would recommend you talk to the people in the county. Ask them how they feel. Ask them who they feel is best fit to lead this county forward. Find the people that you respect in town. Find the people with the boots on the ground who are getting the work done and find out from them how they feel about it. You don't want to take a politician's word over who you should vote for, but it doesn't hurt to do more research, and I would highly recommend it.
Thank you, sir. Now, before we continue, we have been at this for an hour. Would either one of you wish to take a 5-minute recess, or would you like to continue?
I'm fine either way.
I'm fine.
Moving
Then
on.
we will continue. We will move to question number 8 for Mr. Gentle to begin. I am a farmer in Ponderay County and would like to know if you would support funding for the weed board if elected.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm curious where the question comes from, and maybe I haven't paid close enough attention. Were we in danger of losing funding for the weed board? To me, this is just really one of the absolutely critical programs for the county. So I find it hard to believe that there are people talking about not funding the weed board. There are projects in the county that you could put a pause button on. There are projects that we could stop today and pick up maybe when our budget looks better and not lose too much ground. The weed board is not one of those projects. Controlling noxious weeds is not one of those places. You understand these things are on a life cycle, and there is a very short window where it's tremendously effective to knock down your noxious weeds. But if you miss that window, you have compounded your work and your costs. You've multiplied them 100-fold. So no, we can't let up. This costs us, right? It costs us in ecology. It costs, some of these are the noxious weeds, they're poisonous for our animals, for our waterways. They're very destructive. They cost us in productivity, and certainly, boy, it's probably enough to give the farmers around here a nightmare. So absolutely, I support funding for the weed board.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos, same question to you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who sent this question in, but I really want to thank them, because this is one of all of the other questions that you could really get your teeth into, put yourself in a position of a county commissioner and a landowner, and really think about it. So when I came across this question, I say, hallelujah. What a great question. I mean, it really is associated actually with the job of being a county commissioner. So I want to thank whoever sent it in. And it is also a good question for me, because my husband and I are forest land and agricultural landowners, and we have used the services of the weed board for years. Let me start out by saying I believe it is important to control noxious and invasive weeds. Just look at what milfoil and knapweed has done to our county landscape. What a mess. One of the most destructive aspects of noxious weeds is that they displace our native plant species. Noxious weeds use the nutrients, the sunlight, and space that our native plants need to survive. This in turn leaves little to no nutrients for native plants, allowing for those weeds to take over, which they are doing. They're taking over our rivers, they're taking over our lakes, they're taking over our agricultural land. And it's going to change if we don't do something about it. It will change the natural diversity and balance of our county's ecology. As a bit of background for those who might not know what programs the weed board offers landowners with an opportunity to manage their weeds more cost effectively. There's a neighborhood cooperative cost share, mandatory control weed cost share. There's even an equipment rental, and there is a biocontrol of the weeds as well. And there's other areas there. My husband and I have worked with the weed board in a 50-50 cost sharing for fertilizing and seeding our field, and the biological control for the spotted knapweed. This year we ordered fertilizer through the weed board, but the cost share was not available, something we were not made aware of until later. However, they did help us place the order, and it was delivered right to our farm. So the question is, would I support funding for the weed board if elected? I can generally give an easy, straight yes or no answer, but not right now. The reason being is that right now the county is working on a budget for 2021 that is calling for eliminating or cutting programs. This is going to call for determining what are essential and non-essential services. And it will call for scrutinizing not only the weed board budget, but all the budgets in the county. I might add, this is not the first time I have heard some concerns about cutting the weed board. So I know it is a real issue out there. As a county commissioner, I would definitely address it. As an agricultural landowner, I recognize the severity of the noxious and invasive weed problem. As a county commissioner, and these are where the hard decisions are made. In order to make a determination of how essential the weed board is,
Lots of lost. What happened to you? You're gone.
Are we back on? Hello.
I don't think so. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, me neither.
I see the meeting group is still doing fine, so I think we've only lost the debate group, which is too bad, but I think all of us are still here.
Must be the awesome internet in the South County.
Mark.
Well, I guess we'll just dial out.
I hung up and then called back in and was able to, they probably just need to call back in.
I hung up and called back in too, and we're still here with nothing.
That makes another person who did the same thing, called back in and still nothing.
Well, do you think we should just wait for a bit?
I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
I think we should wait.
Honestly,
Okay.
I think somebody's gonna have to reboot to restart this meeting. Otherwise, they're not getting the feed right now. So they're probably gonna have to reboot.
On their end, they'll reboot on their end, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the best thing because right now we lost the feed from those guys. So it's the connection between us and them.
Okay.
This is Susie, and I'm texting Sonia right now.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm out.
Oh, okay.
Who's out? I don't know. Yeah, Mandy was talking. Well, that was Ken on the microphone. Oh. I just feel this up. I'll figure that out. I just want to be.
They're back now.
So are we back on? Son?
Yes, we appear to be back on. Let me double check. Does everyone have audio?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nancy Thompson.
sounds clear.
This is Susie.
Okay, we've got, good to go. Let's resume. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We are in the middle of technical difficulties. We will be restarting here in just a couple of moments.
I'm trying to get my son in the Army then.
All right, we will continue with your, Ms. Kardos, you had 3 minutes left on your question.
Exactly.
How many minutes?
Exactly 3.
3 minutes left.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just repeat just a sentence here, and I'm really looking at this as far as the weed board goes and whether it should be cut or kept or downsized or whatever, and I'm kind of looking at this now from the position of the county commissioner, with a $1 million budget deficit, what we have, how we have to look at these programs. So I would also want to know if the weed board was meeting its mission and goals for noxious weed control. In other words, is a program working? Is a program reaching out to enough of the farmers and people? And are we seeing good follow-up and results? As a county commissioner, one of my roles would not only be to look at the overall rate of success of the weed board, but to look at the weed board budget. Presently, the 2020 budget of the weed board lists total revenue as $205,900. Total salaries, benefits, and expenditures are $418,647. This one program doesn't pay for itself, which is the case with quite a number of other county programs. I know the weed board is looking at how it can make some cuts to the program as our old accounting programs. I will be interested to know what that is going to look like for 2021. With that said about the county weed board, there is also the Ponderay County Soil Conservation District that offers some of the very same services as the cost sharing as the weed board. Presently, my husband and I are working with the Soil Conservation District right now to analyze our soils and getting them prepared for next year's fertilizing and seeding program. I was thinking that if there is a duplication of services between the weed board and the soil conservation, maybe they should get together and talk, get out a cooperative working agreement and discuss these things between the two of them so services are not duplicated, and maybe that could help both budgets. As agricultural and forest landowners, we appreciate the services we have received from the weed board. It certainly has benefited us. As a county commissioner, I would bring that knowledge and firsthand experience of working with the weed board with me. Yes, we need to control the invasive weed problem. We need to support the weed board, but just how that's going to look, if there has to be budget cuts, is to be determined. I do support the weed board though, and I support continuing to finance it.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move on to question number 9. And this will begin with Mrs. Kardos. Can you name the last outside business you recruited to relocate to Pend Oreille County? When and where was that business?
What number was that?
On your sheet, it would be 13. I'm sorry.
So can I name the last business I recruited to relocate Pend Oreille County? When and where was it?
Yes, ma'am.
Number 1, I'm a private citizen and my role is not to recruit businesses to relocate to Pend Oreille County. That is the role of the Economic Development Council, the 2 chambers of commerce, the county, our city governments, POVA, and now PUD has gotten into the recruiting business as well, and that seems like plenty. However, I have talked with a significant number of couples who would like to start businesses in Newport. One of the advantages of running for county commissioners is people start contacting you. And because they see your name in the paper or something, and they want someone to listen to them, they want an ear. And so I receive and have received over the last several months numerous email messages or even letters or phone calls. A lot of these are about people who would like to start a business in Newport. 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with a young woman who contacted me about her business. She purchased a downtown Newport building and the equipment she needs to operate her business, but was looking for a larger building. She even wanted to offer RGU, Responsible Growth, a brick and mortar storefront in her building. I want to read you the email that she sent me. I don't give her name or anything here, but so she wrote to me several weeks ago, and hers isn't the first letter, like I said. She said, in 2015, my husband and I started researching where our family would move to when he finished his 10th year in the Army. After over a year of research, we chose Bonner County and Pend Oreille County. I can vividly remember driving up and down Washington and Union on Google Maps, dreaming about opening a bakery, a souvenir shop in this cute little town. Our relocation criteria in order: number 1, small tourist town. We were tired of military towns and big cities and decided we needed to be at least 50 miles from a large city. Number 2, pollution and industrial. We looked at mines and logging companies lining rivers and saw so many literal red flags showing the violations each company had been ignoring for years. This part of my research was the hardest and most concerning. Number 3, homeschool laws. Number 4, hunting, fishing, recreation. Number 5, lower taxes and utilities. The list goes on, but you get the idea. I'm sure you could imagine the heartbreak we experienced when we found out a smelter would be built in the town we had just moved to, turning our dream into our worst nightmare. With all the anti-smelter talk and your fight in sight, we continue to grow here, and this year I purchased a storefront in town. I had planned to open a boba shop where I could share the kitchen with others wanting to start a food business. Originally in 2015, we were looking at Priest River as Idaho's food processing laws are nominal, but later thought to take up Washington's challenges so we can pave the way to make it easier for other Washingtonians. We had planned to open this summer, but the pandemic brought us to a halt. We had lunch. Her and I had lunch in her little store just down the street here. She has all the equipment in that store, purchased, bought, ready to open a business. She said, how many? 3, okay. She said she reached out to a few landowners, and I've got to start with the possibility of having to move. We're thinking about remodeling our entire business plan to be mobile, meaning food trucks, trailers, instead of a brick and mortar. This then pushes us back to Priest River or Old Town as a prime commercial land in Newport is owned by a few families, and there isn't much room to grow. I have reached out to a few landowners and they are not interested in selling. What is available is either out of our price range or the building is melting and overpriced. We've considered starting an Airbnb and had productive conversations with community development, but ran into problems with old money. Not wanting to share the lake with outsiders, while your opponents are screaming about large industries not feeling welcome, they and the notorious good old boys are pushing away the families who are trying to start businesses, develop organic farms, and better the community. And to make this short, there's a whole bunch more here I could read, but to kind of shorten it, this young lady and her family have ended up finding a building in Priest River where she now is going to be building her shop. For me, that was very depressing to think that we lost her business to Priest River. Every place she told me, every place she turned here to try to get help or to talk about her business, she was told, oh, you can't do that here. Nope, it won't work here. And that's kind of depressing when you want businesses here, you want people to come here, you want these young families here. That's what we're striving for, is the young families. And guess what? We lost in the Priest River because we're not friendly to small businesses at all. And her words to me just recently were when I told her, I'm just so sorry that she had to not open her business here. She says, well, I guess when you snooze, you lose. Because she really wanted to establish the business here. And the other thing of interest to note is Addy Advantage. And I was part of the Addy Advantage environmental team that PUD contracted with and some other organizations to come up with what type of industry would fit with Newport. And so we were part of a team. And what they came up with is exactly what my campaign has stressed all these months. One of the best industries that can be promoted in Ponderay County is value-added wood products from our own forest, sawmills, wood preservation, veneer, plywood, engineering wood products manufacturing, wood containers and pallet manufacturing, paper mills, paperboard containers, and et cetera, et cetera. Mr. Smiley, who's running up in District 3, has a perfect example of a beautiful business, his flooring business, using local trees that we should be emulating all up and down the river. I compliment him for that business. We're using our own natural resources for that. My husband and I even sold Brian trees before. We have some more to sell if he needs them.
We're almost out of time, ma'am.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm done with that one. Thank you.
Mr. Gentle, same question to you,
Can
sir.
you repeat the question?
Can you name the last outside business you recruited to relocate to Ponderay County? When and where was that?
So the answer is none. And I think that's kind of the point here, but it sure isn't for lack of trying. It's similar results as Phyllis's friend got. We're seeing that really kind of across the county from one end to the other. I think in order to build a solution, you really have to have a much clearer understanding of the problem itself. And a lot of the feedback I'm getting from people who are trying to start businesses, and to be clear, I've tried to bring in businesses. I tried to move my business as a satellite here because we don't really have a big name landscaper or irrigator in this area that's reliable that will even answer their phones, or at least not when I checked a few years ago. And this is what I'm hearing from the people trying to start businesses. If I had $1 million and I wanted to invest in this county tomorrow, do you have a place for me? 10, 12 employees, 20 employees, call it light industrial, call it manufacturing. Do you have a wide variety of commercial land available? The answer is no. Do you have a wide variety of mixed-use land available? The answer is no. Do you have any industrial land available? The answer is no. What is my power contract going to be over? 6 months, 3 years? We don't know. We don't have a clear answer. We have maybe sort of a nebulous recommendation of what it might take, but obviously we've seen it go much longer. As Phyllis has said, the Planning Commission hasn't been able to meet since February. There are a lot of outside influences here. It's not in your control. And isn't that just the answer you want when you're deciding how to spend your life savings? Isn't that just what you want? And so when I ask you, now, how would you like to do business here? The answer is no. My priority as a commissioner is to nail down the things we can have nailed down. You are going to have answers, because until we can answer positively, until you can be virtually guaranteed results, I won't recommend you open a business here, small or large, okay? I'm not predetermining outcomes here. The small businesses and the entrepreneurs are the heart and soul of this community, but they're taking a beating right now. And the reason they're taking a beating is a lot of the excessive regulations come to us from Olympia, from the left side of the state, where they play by different rules, number one. And number two is lack of payroll. We just have lost too many of the big checks that used to be in this county. And that is how money makes its way to the small businesses. The reason we're feeling crushed is because we're passing back and forth our own money. There isn't money coming into the county like there used to be, certainly 10, 15, 20 years ago, starting with all of the lumber mills. We've been too slow to react. This has been too long in the making, and it's a problem we've got to solve in the next 4 years.
Thank you, sir. That completes the section 1 questions. We will now move into questions that have arrived to the North Chamber, and these questions, some are specific to candidates and some are for both candidates. We will begin with the following question with you, Mr. Gentle. If someone requests an inspection before the general election, will you allow a digital inspection of your records, or will you insist on a physical inspection? And that is based off of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Public Disclosure Commission has recommended digital inspection of campaign financial records. So the question is, would you allow that digital, or would you insist on a physical inspection?
Well, this would be the easiest question I get all night. My records have been open since the beginning. I ran as a full filer, so right now, if you're watching, you don't even have to wait until we're done. Open up another window on your laptop or your computer, go to the PDC, type in John Gentle. You can see every donor, and it's been that way from the beginning. Ironically enough, the reason it's been that way from the beginning was because Phyllis has been reprimanding the county for a few years now for lack of transparency. I took that to heart. I took that seriously, and I ran an open campaign funding, okay? All of my records have been open from day one. They're open right now. Feel free to look. Strangely enough, Phyllis Kardos has decided to run the mini filing option. I'd like to say that was just because of the work involved in the bookkeeping or the extra hassles there, but she was asked very clearly, and she said some of her donors don't want their name in the paper. To me, that's exactly the opposite of transparency. So we see this across the country, do as I say, not as I do, and it's a little mystifying to me. I really, that one surprised me.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
And the same question.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Would you like me to repeat it again?
So let me get some background information here. Is that during the 10 days preceding the primary or general, a special election in which a candidate's name is on the ballot, the campaign books of account showing all contributions received, expenditures made, and outstanding debts must be open for public inspection. That is, I chose to go with minimum, which is a $5,000 limit on donations and on spending, because I don't like to spend a lot of money. I don't like to spend money on signs and campaign paraphernalia that's going to end up in the landfill. When the primaries were over, I thought, I better go to general. I better go to full reporting. And I even let Mr. Gentle know that I'd be going to full reporting. And the more I thought about it, and it didn't take me very long to think about it, it is not my nature to just spend that kind of money. Who has the most signs? Am I going to be elected because I have the most signs up or the biggest signs? Well, I would like to be elected based on my qualifications and my interests, not because I out-sign somebody. And anyway, during the primary, a lot of my signs got taken and stolen. And I wasn't going to give anyone else the privilege of taking more of those signs. And so I talked with my treasurer, and we made that decision together to not go. I don't know where John gets his information from, but to not go to full reporting for those reasons. I didn't want to spend any more money. It just didn't feel right for me. And so I run my own campaign. And so we made that decision together. But to answer the questions, I prefer a physical inspection of my records for the general election, just as I did for the primary, and for a number of reasons. One reason is to be available to answer questions. During the primary, I had a gentleman who came up and inspected the books. He had 3 or 4 questions. Able to answer them. My treasurer and I were both there. So, if the weather permits during the 10-day window for inspection during the general, it just may be held outside again. With a COVID-19, an outside venue, according to the health experts, is safer than an inside venue. Whether the physical inspection of our books takes place outside or inside, all COVID health and safety measures will be taken, just as they were during the primary inspection. The table was sanitized, we had gloves, we had wipes, we had masks, and even water were made available to the gentlemen. More than 6 feet distancing was respected while the books were being inspected. I am doing nothing, my treasurer and I are doing nothing to violate PDC standards by going with a physical inspection of the books. That is all within the guidelines. That's all we're doing is following the guidelines, and we've been given that option. That's my preference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This next question is for Mrs. Kardos specifically. You tout your experience as an educator, and you realize that the term short bus is a derogatory term for those who are learning disabled. Do you think your statement would have any effect on your ability to represent the county in Olympia? And the statement that is being referred to is, you used the phrase, she not only threw us under the short bus, continuing, in reference to State Senator Shelley Short during the 2018 elections.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now this is obviously one of those, what I call snarky questions that one shouldn't even dignify with a response. It's that type of question that one wants to use to discredit my character, try to damage a successful professional career, or try to trap someone in her answer and then speak and write about it on social media. It's snarky. But I will answer the question, not to dignify it, but to clarify and bring some closure to it, as it has been a favorite topic on social media for Mr. Norm Smith. Background information. I was in a conversation with a group of people who had asked me to give an update on the proposed smelter. Within that conversation, I said Senator Short, threw us, meaning the citizens of Ponderay County, under the bus with her support of that smelter. A very figuratively term that is used quite frequently in conversations when you feel you have been sacrificed by another person. No one is certain where the phrase throw someone under the bus came from, but it does mean to betray or sacrifice a person, particularly for the sake of one's own advancement or as a means of safeguarding one's own interest. However, that definition fits the situation of Senator Short and her role in the proposed smelter very well. She did throw us under the bus, as did the Ponderay County Commissioners. At no time during that conversation were schools, education, disabled children, handicapped children, school children of any nature, short or long buses, or even PBS's magic school bus come up. As for my ability to present myself in Olympia and represent our Ponderay County, you might want to ask that question of people who know me, people who have worked with me, people who have spent time with me, and the people who support my candidacy. And let me add another piece to my answer. I have already met and spoken with Governor Inslee several times. Attorney General Bob Ferguson several times. Director of Commerce Lisa Brown numerous times. Senator Shelley Short. Representative Jacqueline Maycumber. Majority Whip Marcus Rosselli. Commissioner of Public Lands Hillary Franz, members of the Department of Ecology and others. I would say I already have my foot in the door over in Olympia. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's good. This question is also for Mrs. Kardos. You are a named party on lawsuits against the county regarding the smelter. You have also made public statements regarding the zoning of the smelter property. Under the appearance of the Fairness Doctrine and RCW 42.36, would you be ethically obliged to recuse yourself from voting on zoning and permitting issues that specifically identify the smelter property?
Thank you for that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have made no secret about my opposition to the proposed silicon metal smelter or any heavy industrial and zoning issues that would compromise our clean air, water, soil, environment, and health with heavy pollutants. My opponent, Mr. Gentle, has made no secret about his support for the proposed silicon metal smelter and depending on the decisions of the Department of Ecology to protect us from the smelter's toxic pollutants and supporting zoning that would open up the county to industrialization. Why would I be any more responsible for recusing myself than my opponent? Why would my opposition to citing the proposed smelter be any more an appearance of Fairness Doctrine issue than my opponent's support for it would be an appearance of Fairness Doctrine issue? Campaigns are run on issues. You are hearing this tonight. Issues that will come up in the course of our commissioner's work. Are we to interpret the appearance of Fairness Doctrine to mean that any issue that came up in the campaign, that those opposing or supporting it will have to recuse themselves from decision making? I am afraid not a whole lot of work would get done or issues resolved with that type of a law. RCW 42.36.040. Public discussion by candidate for public office. And this applies to Mr. Gentle as well as me, or Mr. Smiley, or Paul Mayer. prior to declaring as a candidate for public office, or while campaigning for public office as defined by RCW 42.17A.005. No public discussion or expression of an opinion by a person subsequently elected to a public office on any pending or proposed quasi-judicial actions shall be in violation of the appearance of fairness doctrine. Thank you.
Here's a question for both candidates. And we will go to Mr. Gentle for the start of this one. Given the increasing restrictions on the Second Amendment in Washington State, do you agree with this direction? Other counties have officially spoken out against various state measures which your constituents do not support. Would you consider speaking against such measures in office, especially if the public used the democratic process and a local vote to express their opinion?
And I love this question. And I don't know, I think people might be inclined to say, well, boy, this isn't really a commissioner issue and it's a bridge we're not likely to have to cross. It seems like we are going to have to cross it. In fact, I think Colt has essentially based his candidacy on that, right? This is the way I like to look at it because I'm kind of a history buff, but when you look at the framers of the Constitution and they decided we're going to write laws we're going to write this set of rules for our brand new country, and put yourself in their mindset. And they had just finished a war, literally fighting their own government. And we're going to write these rules. And at the top of the list is freedom of speech and freedom to peaceably assemble. But we're going to put guns in there somewhere because we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have this brand new country if it wasn't for that. If we weren't as armed as our government, if we didn't have the ability, then we would just be subjects. We wouldn't be citizens. And so where are we going to put this? Let's talk about guns. We're going to put it in the middle or we're going to put it at the bottom? No, it's the Second Amendment. And they couldn't have used clearer language if they chose to. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The word choice they use, infringe, fringe. We don't even want you nibbling away at the edges of this right. Okay? That's how important it was to them. To me, there's so much talk about gun control and common sense gun control, and you see it used as a Trojan horse for a completely different agenda. I absolutely rebuke common sense gun control because if you redefine what it means to be able to own a gun, say by way of example, I'm just having this conversation with my sons. Dad, hey, this makes sense. Crazy people don't need guns, right? Sure, son, except that's how the law is written. But now if you want to change it, you don't have to go rewrite the law. You just have to get a doctor to redefine what crazy means. Okay? So, oh, you're a combat veteran, you have PTSD. You're crazy, no guns. Did you raise your voice at your wife and kids? You're crazy, no guns. Right? And you can understand how this is a very slippery slope. When I see people lining up to give away their rights, they don't understand you can't take away someone else's rights without giving up some of your own. I don't think we have a gun problem in this country. I think we have a heart problem in this country. I think we have a people problem in this country. I would like to see that solved. I'd like to see more work on mental health because that's the biggest part of the problem we have in this country. Listen, I can't say this any more clearly. It is already illegal to murder people in all 50 states, okay? To write laws that make law-abiding citizens into bad guys doesn't get you where you're going. As to the question specifically, is it a bridge we're going to have to cross? Would I go the Culp route? Call me at 2 in the morning and I'll run down to the courthouse and I would absolutely consider turning this county into a two-way sanctuary county overnight. I think Inslee has shown again and again that he's perfectly comfortable way overstepping his constitutional rights, and that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos, same question to you.
But this is probably a question I'm probably the least equipped to even answer, even though I know the Second Amendment also states a well-trained militia. What I see on the streets today in Portland, Seattle, Michigan, wherever you want to place these gentlemen, and maybe ladies too, who have them outfitted in all this paraphernalia, there is no way on God's earth I would support that. Those type of weapons that are being used to shoot up classrooms of kids, people who are vacationing in Las Vegas or watching a movie in Florida, should not have access to those military type weapons. They serve one purpose, and that's to kill somebody. One purpose is all. I don't agree with that at all. I do agree with Mr. Gentle that we need a heart in this country, a heart in this nation that doesn't depend on being armed. The next thing we're going to be armed with are nuclear weapons. Does every citizen need a nuclear weapon? Does every citizen need a replica AK-47? Why? I lived in Alaska, where guns are just common. We even taught a gunsmithing program in my school. We had a student get certified in gunsmithing. They brought their guns into the school. These were village kids, Athabasca Indian village kids that I worked with for 20 years. They know what guns are for. We would go out picking berries. My students would have a gun with them because you know why? Because there's grizzly bear out there. That would be a reason to carry a gun. Protect us. People say, I have to protect my family. I don't think anybody is protecting their family when they're armed the way they're armed. These kids are getting these guns in their hands, and they are shooting up their own mom and dad. They're shooting up babies in schoolrooms. Something has to be done about that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Kardos, you took part in a Black Lives Matter movement protest here in Newport organized by the Democrats of Ponderay County. At the time, the movement was already calling for the complete defunding of law enforcement as well as elevating a homosexual woman of color above all others. To this day, you have the slogan at your sign-waving events. Why do you feel our local law enforcement must be defunded? And why does a sexual orientation or a skin tone need to be held higher in value than all others?
Well, thank you for the question. You know, I've spent my whole life walking the fine line, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This was my very first protest, and I'm damn proud that I took part in it. I'm also a history buff. 21st century, 20th century history was a program I was working on. I understand very well where the Black people are coming from in this country. I realize very well where they've been stepped on, shunned, taken out of jobs, taken out of schools, murdered, hanged, lynched, whatever you want to call it. I see also where the police are using excessive force. I see it on the same news reel that you do, and they end up being killed. So maybe it was just their time for us to recognize Black lives do matter. Does that mean white lives don't matter? Of course not. Does that mean police officers' lives don't matter? Because I took part in a protest that I'm happy I did. Does that mean I don't support the police officers? I've got a ton of police officers in my family. My niece, bless her heart, had her first kill 2 years ago. I understand the role of a police officer. She was set up. It was a domestic violence issue. She was being set up. She could have lost her life. She was the first to get her gun out. Every life matters, from conception to death. And it's time in this country we start respecting people. We don't need to be packing these damn guns around. I support the police. I support them right here. Right now, they're investigating a murder. Some poor kid, 18 years old, whose parents are now grieving for him. I have great compassion for the police force. I had an uncle who was a chip in California. I understand the need for police officers, but you weed out the bad ones. It's the same in education. Not every teacher is qualified to be in the classroom and need to be weeded out. It's the same in the medical field. And we've got to realize just because we're wearing the badge doesn't mean we need to be in that position. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gentle, have you participated in such a protest? And what are your views on defunding the police and elevating a segment of the population over another?
No, I haven't. Well, I feel like it's a little bit of an absurd conversation. I feel like we all learned this in kindergarten. It's the first thing you tell your kids is that you don't judge a book by its cover. Similarly, I'm uncomfortable judging entire groups by their worst members or their least members or their weakest links. And it's really the universal solution, right? You can't say all cops are bad because of a couple bad cops. And the good cops are pissed off about the bad cops, right? It makes their job harder and it makes their job dangerous. And I would have to imagine any segment of the population feels that way. You can't judge Christianity by the Crusades. You can't judge all blacks by the lives of some blacks. Yeah, the same with any color, right? So I can't speak to each individual because that would require me to look into their heart and assume motivation. Here's where I land. I don't believe that Phyllis Kardos is supporting BLM because she's a thug and wants to shoot up the neighborhood. I'm not going to assume that motivation of her. I would have to imagine she's aware and in her heart is fighting for the parts of it because of what I know of Phyllis is fighting for the parts of it that represent racial equality. The same would be true for the police. I'm not interested in defunding police. Boy, this is going to be a lot of very expensive lessons, sending social workers into places where it's too dangerous even for the cops to be, and you don't know until they're there. Sending them in together. It sounds like a whole lot of government, a whole lot of training, a whole lot of waste of money, and it's happening in cities largely where they've had poor results, where they've had, frankly, largely democratic cities where they've had lax laws and they've handcuffed the cops to begin with. In my opinion, the people that respond swiftly and with force, finite results, these are the places where they put down a lot of the violence in a big hurry. As far as BLM specifically goes, the ACLED actually did a study that what they do, if you're familiar with the ACLED, they basically compile conflict event data internationally, all over the world. And they did a study on America for the summer of 2020. And they said, this surprised me a little bit, that of all the protests in the United States, only 7 to 8% had violence. And boy, you sure wouldn't know that if you watched the news. But interestingly enough, of the protests that were violent, 95% did have associations with BLM. And so for you to say that we can just turn a blind eye to this, and that if this was the KKK, of course, we would be screaming. When it was the KKK, we were screaming. So that percentage is too high. I disagree with the methodology. I think Martin Luther King got incredible results using a completely different technique. I'd like to see that. I'm not in their position. I can't judge them. There was a solution written for this a long time ago, and it goes like this. Treat your neighbor like you would treat yourself. And it's really just that simple. If we did a little bit more of that and a little bit of this other stuff, I think we'd be in a whole lot better shape.
Thank you, sir. We had some questions that just came in.
Oh, that's what all the hand signaling was for.
Yes, sir.
It's sending you a text.
So this question will go to you first, sir. How do you see the future partnership as the POC commissioner with the Kalispell tribe if elected?
The tribe is an interesting one for me because, and there's a lot of misconception here, the tribe is a tremendous and critical partner, for the county, and they always will be. Here's where I get sideways. The tribe's goal, the leadership of the tribe, is to represent the tribe. The county commissioner's goal is to represent the county. And so when there are places where we are at odds, when there are things, when their goals do not align with our goals, I am running to represent the county, and the tribal leadership will be representing the tribe in those situations. I don't know how to say that more clearly. That's what I'm running for. Ideally, you could work through and solve all of those. As far as collaborating with them, it's my understanding they are very shrewd, they are very savvy business, and this wasn't always the case, but more recently, maybe under their current leadership, they've really come a long way in advancing the Kalispell's goals here in the county. And so we will have opportunities to collaborate, and some of those will be absolutely amazing, no question. Judging by our recent history and even going back a little further, they're going to be a critical partner, and I have no opposition to working with them. I look forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Kardos, the same question to you.
Good, I'm glad I get that question. First of all, the tribe has endorsed my candidacy, and for that I am very grateful. I think what everybody needs to be reminded of here, and should take some pride in it, is the Kalispell tribe is a sovereign nation within our county. And at one time, their land went all the way over to Montana. They didn't intrude on us. We intruded on them, on their fisheries, on their hunting, on their gathering, and everything. I had been so proud to work with the Kalispell tribe of Indians, with Kurt, with Afton, with Ray, with Mike, with all of them. They too are trying to protect, not just for their own people, the air quality, the soils, the environment, the health of their people. You can't criticize that. They were criticized for putting a bid in on the paper mill property. That was their property at one time. There are sacred grounds there that actually should belong to them. If they want to buy back their own property, wonderful, hallelujah. But what was the county concerned about it? The offer wasn't even dry yet. They were, we're going to lose our tax base. I talked to the tribe about that because I saw the outrage that was coming from certain individuals on this. There's such a thing called payment in lieu of taxes. The Forest Service uses it on their property. State property, you get it. Instead of paying taxes, you have an agreement. So when I talked to members of the tribe, they said that's what we're discussing right now. I had never known the tribe to put anyone in the lurch. There's not an organization in Monterey County, Spokane County, that when they want a donation, let's ask the Kalispell tribe of Indians. and they get it. Millions and millions and millions of dollars have they invested into our communities. In Spokane. I have tremendous respect for them, and I trust what they're doing. And they don't just do it as a knee-jerk reaction. With the paper mill, when they put in on a bid, they said, we want to get those workers back to work. How could anybody want to criticize that? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, this will be our final question of the evening for both candidates. We will start with you, Mrs. Kardos. What is your understanding of the difficulties involved in bringing quality internet to the northern 2/3 of the county? And how do you see your role in the effort as a commissioner?
That's a good question. There's nowhere anymore in this world that we can be where we shouldn't be able to access quality Wi-Fi, internet, and I support 100% doing everything I can as a county commissioner, or even as a private citizen, to help make that happen. I lived in Alaska, yeah, I've mentioned that many times, in 1985, and we even had internet up there, believe it or not, that can communicate with other communities in the United States. And right now, those villages along the Yukon River, Kuskokwim River, where I live, have better internet access than they have up in Medellin Falls. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's a fact. So I don't know all the ins and outs about what needs to be done to make that happen. I know PUD is the stellar group that's trying to get all that done, but South County, North County, Mid County, in order to really get businesses here, we're going to have to really make sure that we have up-to-date 21st century technology all the way up and down the river. It has to happen. There are so many young families, and once again, I've talked with them, they've talked with me, that now are working from their homes. And the only way they can do that is if they have really good broadband service. So I support it 100%, and we need to do whatever we can to pull people into that generation of technology. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gentle, same question to you, sir.
You know, it wasn't very long ago that I would have answered this question differently, that I felt like high-speed internet was a luxury or a privilege, not internet in general, but high speed. With the amount of data transfer now, that's rapidly changing, but then specifically through COVID, to watch families struggle educating their kids. There is no school, we're not allowed to get you in there. Your education is going to fall behind, and there is going to be a cost if you don't have internet in development with your child. Your ability to provide for your family, your personal health and safety. It's tied to so many of those things now that I'm rapidly coming to a point where you should darn near be able to guarantee it at least within a certain distance from people. It's on the short list for all the way north to the border. It really is on the short list. It's my understanding there's a lot of funding that's tied up in RTI who's not delivering as to the specifications that they said they were going to. And so there's talk about forming an action committee to basically be a driver for this, and maybe even some creative solutions to release that funding, since they didn't meet maybe the original specification contractually. So it's going to be in the north. It is on the short list. Boy, you've seen the people at work in town over it. We've got some drivers here that are excited about this. It does have to happen. As far as synergy with the county, it's just a win for us from top to bottom. I think certainly from my role in the assessor's office, we see every property sale come across our county, come across the desk there, and you can see a concentration, of course, in South County. People are willing to come so far into the county. If I'm going to pay top dollar, I don't care that it's beautiful, if I can still find beautiful property down here. I don't even care that it's a long drive, but there are some positively nailed down deliverables, and one of them's high-speed internet. And so that's kind of our gateway to the north, and anything, of course, that happens up there comes through District 1, comes through Newport, and we benefit from that as well. So we have to get it done. And I believe, really, the silver lining there is I'm not hearing anybody talk about it like it's an option anymore. I'm sure there are people talking about it that way, but it's on the list and in a big hurry as far as I understand.
Thank you, sir. That was our final question for the evening. We will go to closing statements. Mr. Gentle, you will have first. Closing statements.
Well, I'm going to start by thanking you guys again, and then I think specifically Phyllis, the respectful way you've run this campaign and the amount of work you've put into it has made it my pleasure to be your opponent. That's significant to me. That means a lot to me. We don't have that example all the way across the country. So we do have two differing points of view, two different ways to achieve what I believe are the same goal. I hope you guys are hearing this as well. We want what's best for the county. We want what we feel like in our understanding is best for the county. And ultimately, you have heard where I stand on the issues, and you have heard where Phyllis stands on the issues. And so ask yourselves, where do you want to be in 4 years? Where do you see your family? And I'm not just talking hyperbole, not metaphorically speaking. Ask yourselves tonight, this weekend, sit down with your spouse, your kids, your grandkids, your friends, and talk about it. And where do you see yourselves? And what is the best way to get there? And when you have asked that question, and when you have answered that question, grab your ballot, Saturday, Monday, please vote. It is your right, it is your privilege in this country to vote. You do have a voice here, and I hope you exercise it. Thank you, Selkirk Sun. Thank you, North County Chamber of Commerce. And thank you both for moderating on short notice.
Thank you. Mrs. Kardos, your final statement.
Thank you. Well, I too would like to thank John. It has been a good campaign, a clean campaign from our point of view. There's been some uncomfortable things going on in that circus social media that we shouldn't even be paying attention to. My determination when I run this campaign, knowing I'm going to be the underdog here in a very conservative Republican county, my whole goal was to be the other choice candidate. I wanted to be sure when people open their ballots that they're going to be getting in the mail. It's been mailed, they've been mailed out. That when they opened those ballots, there was a choice on there. And that they could be proud to make a mark, say, wow, here's somebody from my party, for God's sake. That's been a while, I haven't seen that. I just wanted to give people a solid choice of candidates. I wanted to give them a Democratic choice. I wanted to see them, and there's an independent choice on there now as well, and a Republican choice. Because once we become one party, we're going to lose our democracy. It's so important that everybody has a voice. I want to be your voice. This campaign has exceeded any expectations I had for it. It truly has, and I really think it's going to be very close. That's what I believe. This is going to be way closer than I thought it would be. And I thank every one of you who have made this a really good campaign for me. The support, the love, the encouragement, I never imagined it would come the way it has come, and I do appreciate that. But not only that, I am qualified to be a county commissioner. I know that from my heart. I have the experience. I have the qualifications. I have never promised you anything other than I would do a good job for you. And I would be honest with that. So thank you. I appreciate this evening. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for the moderators. Thank you to John. And get out and vote. I think Andre County is going to have a tremendous block of voters.
Yes.
I really believe that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Kardos. That will end this evening's debates. Again, we want to thank the Sherman Campbell Funeral and Cremation Services for making use of their facility for these debates. Thank you again to both of our candidates.
Thank you.
Good luck in the polls.
And thank you, Jim and Sheldon, and everyone who listened in. Have a great evening. This ends the meeting.
Except for you, you'll be right back here tomorrow.
Except for me, I'll be back tomorrow.